Rumors have been running rampant for a while now in regards to Kurt Angle coming back to WWE. Is a return likely? Will it happen? Blah, blah, blah. In regards to how, obviously, he wrapped up his TNA run earlier on this year, and now with the brand split going into effect, little less than a month away, only 3 weeks away, I believe, that WWE needs all the talent they can get for the brand split, for Raw, SmackDown, whatever. And a report came out they were talking to, or they had reached out to Kurt Angle, to Goldberg, to Jeff Hardy, Carlito, MVP, all these others. I don't know about Carlito. I don't know about MVP in regards to if they've been, talking to WWE or not. I've heard nothing from them, I believe. Jeff Hardy, same thing. Goldberg has since come out and said they have not reached out to me about the brand split. So I don't think that report is entirely correct. I would imagine, I would not put it past WWE to have talked to former talents about coming back for the brand split. But it doesn't necessarily have to be those guys. Kurt Angle, Goldberg, Jeff Hardy. Those are guys that have been rumored to return for a long time now. I can't tell you how many times I've seen Kurt Angle's coming back, or Goldberg's coming back, or Jeff Hardy's coming back, and it has yet to happen. So I'm not denying that they didn't talk to him. Maybe, Angle and Goldberg are just covering it up. But I imagine that it's definitely likely. Actually, I'm almost positive that WWE has reached out to former talent in regards to coming back to the company for the brand split, but it probably isn't necessarily those guys specifically. I feel like we heard that report of them talking to ex-talents about coming back for the company, to the company for the brand split, but then names are attached that don't really match the report. You know what I mean? I feel like Goldberg, Hardy, and Angle are just go-to guys in terms of coming back, and this was their excuse for returning to the company and just putting a name. If that makes any sense. I know I'm kind of confusing myself here, but I feel like the part about WWE talking to old talent is true. I don't necessarily think the part about them talking to specifically Goldberg and Angle is 100% accurate. Angle has said, however, this is the big deal here. This is the big news story from the past week. He did say about a week or so ago that he had been in talks with Triple H, with WWE, about 6 weeks ago or so, about coming back to the company at some point within the next year. He had not been talked to about the brand split specifically, but he did have talks. 6 weeks ago would have been before the brand split news broke anyway. But he did have talks with the company about 6 weeks or so ago, he said, about coming back to the company in some form or fashion at some point down the line to work a part-time schedule. Because if Kurt Angle came back to the company to work as a full-timer, the guy would fucking die. His health is not in the best of... he's not in the best of shape in terms of his health. The guy's been injured how many times in TNA? And so he cannot come back as a full-timer working Raw, SmackDowns, house shows, all that shit. If he's coming back, he's got to work a part-time schedule. A la Chris Jericho or Rob Van Dam or a Batista. He doesn't have to wrestle 2 or 3 times a year like a Brock Lesnar or a Rock. But he can't come back, I feel like, for a few pay-per-view matches a year. Or every other pay-per-view, or just pay-per-view matches. Having him wrestle as regularly as those guys, as the full-timers, is way too much for the broken-down body of Kurt Angle, in my opinion. But he is well worth the investment. It's a long time coming. He's been gone for the company for almost exactly a decade. Can you imagine that? We are quickly coming up on the 10-year anniversary of when he left WWE initially, back in August of 2006. So it's really hard to believe, but we could be seeing Kurt Angle back in WWE at some point. So the big deal is this, in regards to Angle coming back. So he did say, I talked to WWE, but then Dave Meltzer said that he talked to people within the company in the past week, saying that they said they had not talked to Kurt Angle. There have been no talks between the two sides whatsoever. Then Angle had a follow-up story saying that his words got twisted. He is not coming back for the brand split, but he will be back at some point. So it's kind of contradicting reports. Angle has come out and said various things in the past that aren't necessarily true, so you got to take what he says with a grain of salt. WWE may not want to ruin the surprise. Obviously, they're not going to come out outright and say, yeah, we've been talking to Kurt Angle about coming back to the company. They're not going to spoil it, outright. So I'm not surprised they said we're not talking to him, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're not. I do think Kurt Angle, a return from him is only inevitable. Like I said, a full-time return shouldn't happen, probably won't happen. It couldn't happen because Angle his body is not made out for that. It's not... it can't function that way, at least at this point in time, in this stage of his career. He cannot work a full-time schedule. The guy would fucking die. So that's not happening, nor do I want to see it happen. I think a few pay-per-view matches a year would be perfect for him. So hopefully we see that in the next year. I've heard reports, I've heard people say that the Raw after Battleground is in Pittsburgh. So maybe we see him come back then. I don't think so. I don't think it's going to be that soon. It would be amazing, though. And also considering SummerSlam is right around the corner, they want star power for that show. I mean, last year we had Brock Lesnar on the show. We had Mick Foley come back, Jon Stewart. The Undertaker, for the first time in 6 or 7 years, competed at SummerSlam. So I would not put it past them to have him return at the show. So it would be pretty cool to see Kurt Angle back in time for SummerSlam, not just because I'll be there, but I think it'd be a great get for the company if he was able to appear on the show. That is the latest on Kurt Angle coming back, though. Like I said, nothing confirmed, obviously, as of now. But regardless of what either sides have said, I do fully believe that he will be back in some capacity at some point. I know he talked about maybe managing American Alpha. That would be pretty cool, but I feel like it just doesn't need to happen. I know there's ties there between the world's greatest tag team, American Alpha, Kurt Angle. It'd be awesome for like a one-off segment. That's like bringing Hulk Hogan back to manage the Real Americans. You know what I mean? It just doesn't need to happen. So, had that happen a couple of years ago. I feel like maybe a one-off segment between American Alpha and Kurt Angle or a backstage encounter or something would be cool. You don't have to have them manage them just because they don't really need it. They're great on their own. They're amazing as it is, so you don't really need them to be put with Kurt Angle. Like I said, for maybe a one-off, that'd be cool, but for a full-on managing, I mean, I'm not saying I would hate it, but I'm just saying it's not really all that necessary, if that makes sense. But anyway, the latest on Kurt Angle, that nothing has been confirmed. All we know is that we really know nothing in regards to Kurt Angle coming back, officially anyway. Like I said, I do think he will be back with the company at some point, probably sooner rather than later. He has said in the past that he wants to take a year from wrestling, which isn't entirely true, so you can't really believe what Kurt Angle says just because he's wrestled matches already against Rey Mysterio, Zack Sabre Jr. He's wrestling a match against Cody Rhodes in Northeast Wrestling in August. So you can't really believe all that Kurt Angle says, but it will be interesting to see if Angle's back, when he's back, because like I said, I feel like he will be back at some point. It's more a matter of when than if. But hopefully, for our sake, it will be sooner rather than later.